let's say, let's take a RAG example, right? So retrieval augmented generation. Sometimes it does make sense to do ANN search, but sometimes a user query might be just a keyword, right? And then probably keyword search is a better thing to do. Uh, are these kind of combined queries possible in Milvus? Like, can you do both vector search, sorry, ANN and keyword search query, like at the same, not necessarily at the same time, but yeah.
Retrieval augmented generation, new school use for vector databases is to just use it in combination with documents, to use it in combination with large language models. And what you'll do is you'll match prompts with those documents or with those document chunks. So basically, vector databases, long story short, are used as a way to inject domain knowledge or domain data into your large language model. And I would say if we're talking retrieval augmented generation, yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but the vast majority of RAG or RAG apps use vector databases as the underlying data store. Now, going back to your question, Armas, which is, can I do in Milvus, can I do that traditional keyword-based text search plus vector search? And the answer is you can't. But there's a very, very specific reason for that. And we're looking at potentially adding that into Milvus as well, which is because we want Milvus not to be specifically there for text only. Right? Later on we may want to add this feature. I'm not going to rule it out completely, but we want vectors to be the first class citizens in a vector database, and at the same time we want to give you the capability to eventually do retrieval augmented generation, for example, across other forms of data as well, across images, maybe video, right? You can imagine eventually I might want to input not just the relevant documents into my large language model, but also relevant images into those large language model, maybe relevant audio snippets in that large language model. And if I tie a vector database very closely with traditional keyword search or traditional text search, I lose that capability. I lose the capability to go multimodal, right? Now, that doesn't mean that we won't add that feature into Milvus later, but we are cautious. I think we're a little bit more cautious than other vector databases. And the reason is because, yes, while keyword search is very, very, it's very, very useful in many cases, we want to be agnostic. We want to be more agnostic to the very specific type of data that you decide to store. It can be text, sure, but we also want you to be able to store, let's say, IMU data, molecular structures, right? Maybe some time series data or some geospatial data in your vector database. But yeah, that was a sort of a quick, like a 1-minute intro into retrieval augmented generation. Just scratch the surface of that, and also hopefully a bit of insight as to why we decided to build Milvus the way that we did.
But I think users usually still store text chunks as metadata, right? It's not like text is not stored.
Yeah, you can. I actually encourage users to store the text chunks in some type of object store. So rather than using metadata fields, rather than storing it along with the vectors as metadata fields, you simply build a reverse index where you store it in some sort of key value. You store your text chunks, your document chunks in some sort of key value store, or you store it as just raw bytes in let's say S3. And what that gives you, and as long as you maintain an index, so you can store, let's say, the URL, you store the location to that document or to that document chunk as a part of the metadata, right? So that averts the need, that gives you much more efficient storage, and that averts the need to store the entire document chunk or the entire document, the text of the document, as a metadata field as well. Now, do we have users who do that? Yeah, absolutely. And you can do that, right? You can do that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But for me, that's my general recommendation, is to use the vector database for, really hardcore down-to-earth vector search, and to just in the interest of storage and just in the interest of sort of efficiency, you can retrieve those chunks using the entity IDs or using the ID field in Milvus. So you just maintain a reverse index to the original document or document chunk.